At the company's annual gala, my wife and her male assistant drank from the same wine glass. Without a second thought, I immediately put out the word I was pulling all support from her company. That very day, 2/3 of my wife's partners announced they were permanently terminating all business with her, voiding all existing orders. It wasn't until the divorce papers appeared on Victoria Hayes's desk that she came to me, incandescent with rage. All I did was take a sip of Julian's wine. "Do you really have to be so relentless over something so trivial?" My voice was calm. "Yes, I do." At the annual company gala, Victoria Hayes was a vision in a fiery red dress, breathtakingly beautiful. She took the wine glass Julian Shaw handed her, not minding in the slightest that he had just taken a sip from it, and tilted her head back to drain the contents. Under the varied gazes of the crowd, Victoria's face flushed as she looked at Julian, her eyes full of a captivating allure. This year, the company's sales volume hit a record high, and our market value has doubled. Julian deserves the lion's share of the credit for this. He's the one who led the team, followed up on every project, pulled all-nighters revising proposals, and worked countless sleepless nights to expand our business to reward his dedication. I am announcing his promotion to director of the project department. I will also be transferring 10% of my personal shares to him. 10% of the shares, even at the current market value, was worth $50 million. Not to mention, Victoria's shares came with direct management rights, essentially making Julian a member of the board. The room erupted with a mixture of shock and envy, the applause thunderous enough to tear the roof off. I sat in a shadowy corner, watching this unfold, my heart growing colder and heavier with each passing moment. When we were first discussing marriage, my parents had reservations. Victoria came from a modest background but was fiercely strong-willed. But I stood firmly by her side, even willing to break ties with my family for her for 5 years after our wedding, to make Victoria's entrepreneurial dream a reality. I helped her build her company from scratch. I started as a basic salesperson, fighting for and managing every single deal for her. During the busiest times, I'd shuttle between cities to meet clients, often only having time for a single cup of instant noodles a day. When I couldn't go on, I'd just slump over a table in a fast food restaurant to catch a few moments of sleep. On several occasions, I drank so much with clients that I ended up in the emergency room with a bleeding stomach. Bit by bit, I built Victoria's foreign trade company into what it is today. But now she was attributing all of that success, all of my hard work, to this male assistant Julian, who had only joined the company 2 years ago. She even gave him the position of project director, a role that should have been mine. Victoria wasn't one to wear her heart on her sleeve. She might be feeling 10 things, but you'd only ever see 3 on her face. That's why 5 years ago, when she suggested we keep our marriage a secret at the office so she could focus on work, I agreed without hesitation. But now, she was flirting openly with Julian in front of all our employees, sharing a wine glass with him. In a single night, all my years of effort and love were brutally trampled under her feet. I left the ballroom, took out my phone, and pulled a long dormant number from my blacklist. "Dad, I've thought about what you asked me last week. I'm ready to come back and take over the Clark Corporation from you." Hearing my words, my father on the other end of the line was overcome with emotion, his voice thick with tears as he repeated, "Good, good. Sincere, it's for the best that you've come to your senses. You're my only child. Dad poured everything into raising you. All I've ever wanted was for you to have a better life. As for Victoria, sigh, we were just being overprotective parents back then. Don't worry, now that you're married, your mother and I will treat her well and do our best to meet all her needs." When we first met, the proud and arrogant Victoria, afraid of being looked down upon by my CEO parents, deliberately acted rudely in front of them to prove she wasn't a gold digger. When we were arranging the marriage, Victoria had the audacity to demand $10 million in cash from my family, plus 30% of the company's shares for her younger brother. Her own dowry consisted of just 2 sets of bedding. My parents, of course, refused. Victoria then threw a fit, crying that my family looked down on her and forcing me to choose between her and them. Back then, I was blinded by love and chose to turn my back on my family for her. Looking back now, I see how foolish and unfilial that decision was. Listening to my father's occasional cough over the phone, a sourness welled up in my heart. Dad, I've decided to divorce Victoria. I won't be involved with her company anymore either. From now on, we'll be strangers, with no connection whatsoever. My dad was surprised, but he quickly understood the meaning behind my words. After a moment of thought, he agreed, "Cutting your losses is for the best. Whatever you decide, I will support you unconditionally. I'll inform the finance department right now. They'll withdraw all investments from Victoria's company." I was stunned. It was only then that I learned the truth. 3 years ago, when Victoria's company was facing a financing crisis and was on the verge of bankruptcy, the angel investor who had appeared out of nowhere was, in fact, the Clark Corporation. Fearing my pride would make me refuse, my father had kept it a secret, silently pouring large sums into Victoria's company. He had only told me the truth today. After hanging up, I was overwhelmed with guilt and sorrow, unable to calm my turbulent emotions for a long time. It was late at night when I finally got home. Pushing open the door, I saw Victoria lying on the sofa, her shoulders bare. Julian, wearing my loungewear as if he were the master of the house, was massaging her waist and legs. "Well, if it isn't the chief, finally back." Seeing me, Julian shot me a provocative glare, though his words were dripping with false concern. "You disappeared from the gala without a word. Miss Hayes was looking all over for you. She tried calling, but your phone was off. Next time, at least leave a message so you don't worry her like this." Victoria didn't even open her eyes, just let out a cold snort. "Sincere Clark, if you were half as considerate as Jules, our life wouldn't be so damn dull." Hearing this, I stopped in my tracks, having intended to go straight to my study. I turned to look at her. "In that case, let's get a divorce. You can be with him." My voice was utterly calm, but Victoria leaped up from the sofa, her almond-shaped eyes wide with fury. "Sincere Clark, are you out of your mind? How dare you speak to me like that? It's bad enough you can't compete with Jules at work, but you're not even as witty and charming as he is in life. I offer you a little criticism, and you throw a tantrum. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? Do you still think you're the great heir to the Clark Corporation? These past few years of constant work had aged me more than 5 years. Just recently, I'd pulled several all-nighters for a project, and hadn't even had time to shave. Of course, I couldn't compare to the smooth-skinned Julian standing next to her, but she knew that my break with my parents was my deepest wound. To use it to attack me now was like twisting a knife in my heart. I took a deep breath, looking at Victoria calmly. "I'm serious, and I hope you'll think about it seriously too." "Think about what? What do you want me to think about?" Victoria cut me off impatiently. "Are you determined to oppose me? Can't you see how hard I work every day? I have to manage the company, and when I finally get home to rest, I just ask Julian to keep me company for a bit. Do you have to be so small-minded and make a scene over nothing?" She slammed her hand on the table, as if she had worked herself into a real frenzy. Julian quickly went to get her some hot water, thoughtfully helping her drink it. "Sincere Clark, you tell me, are you even comparable to Julian? If I had to rely on you to take care of me, I'd have died of frustration long ago even now." Victoria couldn't resist praising one at the expense of the other. Julian said with false sincerity, "All right, Chief, that's enough. There's nothing going on between Vicky and me. Why do you have to make yourself look so pathetic?" He clicked his tongue, his expression a mask of pity. But neither of them noticed that my fists were clenched tight. I can't even remember when Julian started daring to be so brazen in my presence. Was it the day he went from being a security guard at the gate to becoming Victoria's assistant, or was it the first time Victoria brought him to my home? "What are you just standing there for? Go make some hangover soup." Victoria continued to yell at me. "How many times do I have to tell you that Jules is allergic to alcohol? I'm begging you, Chief. This is the only thing you're good for. Can't you at least try to make yourself useful?" She rested her forehead in her hand, as if I truly were the useless kept man she described. But over the years, besides my wholehearted dedication, this company had also been propped up by the full financial backing of the Clark Corporation. What right did she, Victoria Hayes, have to criticize me? As I stood there lost in thought, Julian suddenly spoke up. "Vicky, it must be my presence here that's upsetting the chief. I think I should get going." He looked dejected and made a move to leave. But Victoria shot up and grabbed his arm. "Sit down, this has nothing to do with you." Victoria snorted coldly and then glared at me. "Today, I'm going to teach Sincere Clark a lesson about his arrogant, insufferable attitude from an angle Victoria couldn't see." Julian shot me a defiant smirk, and then he gave me the middle finger. "Chief, I know I have my flaws, but you'll just have to put up with it for now. Who told you to be disobedient and make Vicky angry?" He sat back down and continued to massage Victoria's shoulders. After witnessing all this, a sudden sense of release washed over me. People change. The Victoria who once made me willing to abandon everything, to bet my entire future on being with her, had long vanished from my memory. "Regarding the divorce, I'll have my lawyer contact you to handle the details." Giving Victoria one last look, I turned and walked away. Through the reflection in the glass of the door, I thought I saw a flicker of astonishment on her face. "Sincere Clark, if you dare walk out that door, don't ever come back." Slam, I answered her threat with the resounding sound of the closing door. I thought I would toss and turn all night, but as it turned out, it was the most peaceful night's sleep I'd had in years. No worrying about the company, no caring about Victoria, and certainly no need to be on guard against Julian. I finally knew what it felt like to live for myself. The next morning, I was awakened by a barrage of phone calls. "Sincere, get to the office. Quick, Director Shaw says he's inspecting our work today and is specifically auditing your team's projects." The call was from a project manager in another group. I frowned. This Julian Shaw really thought he was something, a mere security guard, thinking a title made him a real director. I hung up, got up unhurriedly, washed, and took my time, not driving to the office until after 10. My phone was blowing up the entire way, mostly with calls from members of my own project team. From the moment I stepped into the company, I noticed the strange looks people were giving me. Look at him, still acting all high and mighty. He won't be so smug when Director Shaw settles the score with him, forget it. He's on his way out anyway. He probably doesn't even know he's a general with no army left. Serves him right for stealing credit. Good thing Director Shaw is smart and planted a mole on his team ahead of time. The surrounding whispers left me completely bewildered. I quickened my pace to my office, only to find that the world had turned upside down. Julian had a cigarette dangling from his lips, with several bottles of expensive liquor on the table beside him. My second in command, a deputy manager of the project team, was leading a group of subordinates, lining up to toast Julian and pledge their loyalty. "Director Shaw, it's all thanks to your brilliant and decisive leadership that we were able to stand out in the company's external partnerships on behalf of the entire project. Team, I salute you. I'll drink to that. You just have a sip." The deputy manager downed a glass of liquor, and the people behind him quickly followed suit. No one noticed me until Julian called my name. Well, Manager Clark, you finally decided to grace us with your presence?" Julian looked at me mockingly. I ignored him and addressed the deputy manager and the others directly. "Who gave you permission to drink during work hours? Don't you have your own jobs to do?" The subordinates instinctively started to disperse, but the deputy manager grabbed the person next to him. "Have you all forgotten what I just said? All the hard work was done by Director Shaw alone. Sincere Clark is just a thief who stole the credit," the deputy manager sneered. Before I could react, several longtime employees, people I had personally hired, stepped forward. "That's right, everyone, be brave. Don't worry about offending anyone. After all, we have Director Shaw looking out for us. Exactly, sticking with Director Shaw is how we'll keep making money." The veteran employees had also formed a united front, siding with Julian. To be honest, I was truly taken aback. In my memory, Julian was just a poor kid who had knelt before me, thanking me for giving him a job as a security guard. When I first met him, he was an unemployed drifter. One day he helped a company guard catch a creep who was stalking a female employee. He had pleaded with me then, begging for a job as a guard. I took pity on him and agreed, never imagining that I was nursing a snake in the grass that would one day bite me. Manager Clark, it seems you've come at a bad time, haven't you? Julian watched me with a grin. I gave him a cool glance. You don't actually believe that just by saying you deserve the credit it magically becomes yours, do you? My face was impassive. Julian sneered. Why don't you try and see? He continued his provocation, completely unafraid. His ignorance made me laugh. Forget it. I was planning to resign anyway. The only reason I came here was to see if anyone was willing to follow me to a new opportunity. I looked at the colleagues with whom I had once strived and fought. They knew better than anyone how much effort and sweat I had poured into this company. But some of them chose to go against their conscience and side with Julian, which left me deeply disappointed. Sincere Clark, I show you respect because you're a company elder, but you dare to poach my staff right in front of me. I see you have no regard for rules whatsoever. Julian slammed the table, looking utterly self-important. I glanced at him and said flatly, "What are you afraid of? Don't you have a silver tongue? All you have to do is open your mouth and contracts will come flocking to you. Why would you worry about me poaching anyone? That's a separate issue. My ability is my ability, but your poaching is disrespectful to the company and to Miss Hayes. I will absolutely not tolerate this kind of parasitic behavior from you." Julian spoke with righteous indignation. The deputy manager immediately started clapping, cheering him on enthusiastically. After a moment's hesitation, most of the others joined in with applause and cheers. I looked at them and shook my head. If anyone wants to join me for a new opportunity, you can contact me any time. With that, I went back to my desk to pack my things. I didn't want any more trouble, but it was clear Julian wasn't going to let me go. Sincere Clark, have I been too easy on you? Can't you see why I'm here today? Julian came up to me, his hand gripping my shoulder. I'll give you one last chance. Apologize to me properly and promise that from now on, my name will be listed as the head of all projects. If you do that, I'll allow you to continue as project manager. He had a look of pure arrogance on his face. Seeing him so self-assured, thinking he had me in his grasp, I just gave a contemptuous smile, and here I thought you genuinely didn't know whose accomplishments they really were. After mocking him, I picked up my box of belongings and prepared to leave. Julian's mouth twitched, and then he gave me a hard shove. I was holding the box and the push sent everything scattering across the floor. My head slammed into the sharp corner of a desk. Just then I heard Victoria's voice. "What are you all doing?" "This is the loudest department in the entire company," Victoria's stern voice cut through the air. I looked up, and my eyes met hers. She froze. "You're bleeding?" A flicker of panic crossed Victoria's eyes. She pulled out a handkerchief and pressed it to my head. In that instant, it felt like she was the woman I used to know. Ouch, but the next second, Julian's cry of pain rang out. Victoria immediately let go of me and rushed to check on Julian. "Are you okay?" Her voice trembled with urgency. I let out a bitter laugh. It turned out she had only offered me the most insignificant bit of concern, and I had mistaken it for a return to the past. "I'm fine, Miss Hayes. I was just inspecting the work here when Manager Clark suddenly got angry and tried to leave. I guess he was upset that I was interfering with his work. Anyway, we got into a bit of a scuffle, and I twisted my ankle. It hurt so much." Julian sucked in a breath, his act utterly convincing. Victoria was frantic, about to call for an ambulance. "It's okay, Miss Hayes, I can still work. You should go check on Manager Clark. His head is bleeding." Julian quickly pushed her phone down. He even feigned concern for me. Victoria bit her lip, glanced at me, and then turned her head away. What, am I so bored that I should care about him? Who knows if he didn't just bang his head himself to get my attention? Victoria's cold words sent a chill down my spine. The bitterness in my heart had nowhere to go. I could only swallow the injustice for now. "Victoria, please approve my resignation. I got up from the floor and handed her the documents I had prepared earlier. She was stunned for a moment. "What do you mean by this? Are you threatening me?" Victoria was getting agitated. The others in the room gave us strange looks. It was no wonder. They didn't know about my relationship with Victoria, let alone what had happened between us. "I'm serious." I calmly held out the documents. But Victoria slapped them out of my hand, sending them scattering to the floor. "Are you ever going to stop, Sincere Clark? You think this will make me care about you? Was I wrong when I said you're so much worse than Julian? Look at Julian, you treated him so badly last night, and he didn't even get angry. And you? What are you being so small-minded about?" She was breathing heavily. I took a deep breath. "Stop pretending, Victoria. You really don't know why I'm doing this?" My eyes met hers. For a split second she looked guilty, but only for a second. I don't even know what you're trying to pull with this whole spectacle today." Victoria lifted her chin, refusing to admit anything. I sighed. If that was how she wanted to play it, then she couldn't blame me for being direct. I originally wanted to handle this privately, since you care so much about your pride. But now it seems there's no need for me to give you any face. So let me say it again, Victoria. I want a divorce. My tone was exceptionally flat. So flat that everyone in the room stood frozen for a good 10 seconds before they processed what I had said. Well, what? Did Manager Clark just say divorce? Divorce who? Miss Hayes? Oh my God, Manager Clark and Miss Hayes are married? Does that mean we just chose the wrong side? By the time Victoria realized what I had said, it was too late. Sincere Clark Victoria was about to explode with rage. Julian was by her side, soothing her with kind words, thoughtfully pouring her water and rubbing her back. Wait, if they're married, then Julian is… Damn, I thought Julian and Ms. Hayes were the couple. Why else would she promote a security guard to director? I was waiting for them to make it official, and now you're telling me Miss Hayes is already married, and her husband is Manager Clark. The expressions on everyone's faces grew strange. Victoria's face darkened further. She shoved Julian away and glared at me. You're doing this on purpose to embarrass me and Julian, aren't you? Her eyes were filled with resentment. I just found her ridiculous. So you do know your actions are shameful. I thought you were going to play dumb forever, you. Victoria gritted her teeth. Cut the crap and sign the papers. Wouldn't you be happier with your considerate and charming Julian? I stared directly into her eyes. Sincere Clark, are you really going to be this ruthless? Victoria's voice dropped. You know I care about my pride. With so many people watching, I might actually agree. She bit her lip, warning me again in a hushed tone. I don't know if she thought she could still manipulate me like she used to, but I had already made things crystal clear. Sign it now before I spell this out for the entire company. The resignation form, the divorce agreement. Please sign them both clearly. I placed both documents on the table. Victoria stared at me, hesitating, debating whether to sign. Julian's eyes darted around. Then he pointed at me and yelled, Who do you think you are, threatening Miss Hayes? If it wasn't for Miss Hayes giving you a chance, do you think you'd be where you are today? A kept man living off Miss Hayes, and now you dare to disrespect her? If I were her, I'd kick you to the curb without a second thought. He spoke up for Victoria with righteous fury. But Victoria's expression was somewhat dazed. Would she really do that? I couldn't ask for more. I shrugged. Julian continued to fan the flames. Miss Hayes, we can't let him look down on us. Besides, there are so many subordinates here. What he's doing is clearly a deliberate attempt to make it impossible for you to lead the team in the future. We can't fall into his trap. We have to be strong. His words only made Victoria more flustered. In the end, Victoria agreed to sign. Sincere Clark, don't you come crying back to me. Victoria shot me a fierce glare. I don't know if it was my imagination, but her eyes seemed to hold more sorrow than anger. I collected the 2 documents. I'd be grateful if you just stayed out of my life. With that, I walked out. After getting my head wound bandaged at the hospital, I returned to the home I hadn't set foot in for years. My parents knew I was coming and had prepared a banquet to welcome me back. The moment my mother saw me, she couldn't hold back her tears and hugged me tightly. For all these years, I had only sent her a happy holidays message on special occasions. But only I knew how much I longed to eat a meal cooked by my mom again, to chat with my parents again. Now those longings were no longer just fantasies. It's good you're back. It's good you're back. My father was also in tears. He had more wrinkles and white hair than he did a few years ago, which filled me with even more guilt. At the same time, I made a silent vow. Everything I had lost because of Victoria, I would get back, twice over. Meanwhile, Victoria had been in a foul mood all day. To be precise, it had started last night. Don't be angry, Miss Hayes. You still have me, right? Julian was cheerfully massaging her back and legs, but right now, Victoria just found him to be in the way. What good are you? You don't really think I made you a director because you're actually better than Sincere Clark, do you? Victoria uncrossed her legs, her eyes cold. The smile on Julian's face froze instantly. Of course not. I remember our agreement. I'm just a distraction for your boring life. How would I dare compare myself to Mr. Clark? Julian gave a sheepish laugh. Victoria bit her lip, finally saying impatiently, "Get out. Find something to do. What's the point of you always following me around?" This time, Julian's expression grew even more awkward. "Right, I'll go then." After he left, Victoria began to wonder if she had made a mistake. Initially, she had only brought Julian in as her assistant to add a little spice to her dull life. She never expected that he would do better and better, even helping the company close several major deals. At the gala, she had had too much to drink, and that's why she had decided to let Julian replace Sincere. Knock knock, a frantic knocking at the door interrupted her thoughts. She impatiently told the person to come in. "This is bad. Miss Hayes, our biggest investor, just pulled out, and 8 of our 10 upstream suppliers have terminated their contracts, the deals we closed. Last month are due for delivery soon, but we have no way to get the goods now. At most, we can stall for a week. After that, we'll have to pay a penalty of 3 times the value of the goods." It was her new assistant, his face a mask of anxiety as he delivered the report. Victoria was completely stunned. Who was handling the investor? And who was in contact with the suppliers? Get them to find a way to stall. She knew better than anyone how dangerous this situation was. Time was short. It was impossible for her to find alternative companies to fulfill the orders. Even if she could, the cost would be astronomical. And if she couldn't, the penalties would bankrupt her completely. The investor said, "He'll only speak with Mr. Clark. Now that Mr. Clark is gone, he will absolutely not invest in the company again." The assistant's voice grew quieter and quieter. Victoria was in shock. What about the suppliers? I can borrow money." "Go contact them. Try to keep them on board for now." She hastily put on her jacket, ready to call a meeting. But her assistant's next words made her freeze again. "Those suppliers also said they only work with Mr. Clark. They only listen to Mr. Clark." Victoria felt a wave of dizziness. It took her a long moment to steady herself. Then have the project heads communicate with our partners. Ask them for an extension. I'll figure something out." Victoria gritted her teeth. The assistant immediately complied, and Victoria called an emergency meeting. "Julian, as the project director, the task of communicating with our partners falls to you. And several of these 10 partners are ones you close deals with, right? I need you to work hard and get us through this crisis." Victoria placed the heavy burden on Julian's shoulders. Without waiting for his reply, Victoria immediately returned to her office. She hesitated for a long time before finally dialing the number she most dreaded calling. I was at home getting familiar with the Clark Corporation's business with the help of the group's executive assistant when Victoria's call came through. "Excuse me, Miss Hanson, I need to take this." The moment I saw it was Victoria's number, I knew what she was going to say. For the sake of our past marriage, I decided to tell her the truth. "Sincere Clark, can you do me a favor? Don't refuse right away. I know we're divorced, but you still have shares in the company. If the company goes under, it won't do you any good either." She still had that same old facade of forced strength. I just found her tedious. If you have something to say, say it. If not, don't bother me. Only then did Victoria tell me about the crisis her company was facing. I need you to talk to your family, ask them to lend me some money, or have your parents put in a good word for me just to get me through this tough spot. Victoria's tone was filled with command. I frowned. I'm not the heir to the Clark Corporation anymore, I said slowly. Those were the words Victoria had said to me just a couple of days ago. She had even used them to mock me. By what right did she have the nerve to ask me to go to my family for help now? Victoria was silent for a moment before finally saying, I know you're angry, but can you please put your personal feelings aside for a moment? This company is my life's work. Her words made me laugh in disbelief. Your life's work? What have you ever done for the company? I'm the one who negotiated the deals. I established the departments. I hired the senior staff one by one, and I planned its future development. 3 years ago, you said my success was putting too much pressure on you, so I stepped back and let you take the reins. And what happened? In less than 3 months, you nearly drove the company into bankruptcy. You tell me, what have you contributed? I don't usually say things like this, but today Victoria had really pushed me too far. After the company was brought back from the brink, I worked my ass off to find new partners, set up new project teams, and open up bigger markets, all to get the company back on track. And what did you do? You gave all my credit to a useless piece of trash who used to be a security guard. Now that the company is failing again, you suddenly remember me? Where were you before? Every word was an indictment of Victoria. This time she was silent for much longer. So, if you can't get your parents to help, then you help. The investors specifically asked to speak with you. It was as if Victoria hadn't heard a word I'd said. I felt like I was punching a cotton ball. It was impossible to get through to her. It's not just the investors who want to talk to me. The suppliers want to talk to me too, right? How did you know? This time, Victoria's reply was quick. Obviously, the investor is the Clark Corporation, and those 8 upstream suppliers were all friends. My father secretly asked to help out. So why do you think they want to talk to me? Saying those words, I felt a wave of catharsis. Victoria's expression must be priceless right now. But what I never expected was that Victoria would actually start blaming me. Sincere Clark, I never thought you could be so despicable, she said through gritted teeth. I was stunned for a moment. You reconciled with your family and didn't tell me? You deliberately let them control my company so you could control me, is that it? Now that you've divorced me, you've pulled all the partnerships. You're not a man at all, Victoria raged again. This time it was my turn to be silent. After a long pause, I told her only one thing. You're on your own. I hung up and blocked her number. No matter how she tried to contact me, I wouldn't waste another word on her. 2 days later, the former deputy manager of my project team called me. Manager Clark, I'm so sorry I was being blackmailed by Julian before. He said if I didn't do what he said, he'd fire me, and I was too scared to cross him. The deputy manager explained, sobbing. You have no idea. Miss Hayes and him have been at each other's throats these past 2 days. Julian forced us to admit that all the team's partnerships were his doing. Ms. Hayes actually believed him and sent that idiot to talk to the partners about extending the delivery deadlines. And that prize idiot Julian, he really thought he was a director. He went over there and started ordering them around, telling them to wait a few more months. The reasonable ones didn't waste their breath on him, but when the short-tempered ones argued with him, he actually started a fight. The deputy manager's words made me laugh out loud. Although I wasn't surprised by Julian's actions, it was still amusing to hear. Now several partners have teamed up to sue the company, and the final delivery deadline is in 3 days. If we can't deliver by then, we'll have to pay 3 times the damages. Please, sir, be the bigger person. Please help us. If the company goes bankrupt, we won't get our salaries, and so many of us will be unemployed. The deputy manager begged me, his voice choked with tears. Hearing this, I finally understood. It seemed Victoria knew she was in the wrong, and didn't have the face to call and ask me for help herself. Tell Victoria she will never deserve my forgiveness. She trampled on my deep affection like it was a weed. She can forget about playing the sympathy card with me now. Tell her to go find Julian. I hardened my heart once more. I would never forgive Victoria. A few days later, I made my first public appearance as the successor to the Clark Corporation. It was a high-end business conference. I never expected to run into Victoria here. Sincere Clark, she called out to me, then approached hand in hand with Julian. You didn't expect this, did you? Not only did my company not go bankrupt, but I also managed to resolve the entire crisis. Victoria looked at me with an air of triumph. Let me tell you, it's all thanks to Julian. His rich uncle in America passed away and left him a multi-billion-dollar inheritance. She became even more smug, but I just gave her a fleeting glance. Congratulations. Just then, the group's executive assistant, Hannah Hansen, walked over. She was dressed in a simple black business suit, yet her presence was so powerful that many in the room looked up to her. Standing in front of Victoria, she outshone her in both looks and aura. Mr. Clark, they are all waiting for you, Miss Hansen said to me with the utmost respect. A red carpet stretched from the entrance of the conference hall directly to my feet. A crowd of business tycoons emerged, applauding my arrival. I looked down at Victoria from my elevated position. Then, I stepped onto the red carpet, calmly accepting everyone's greetings. The Victoria of today no longer held any interest for me. After that, I smoothly became the heir to the Clark Corporation, vaulting into the city's elite business circle. Then one day, for some reason, Victoria was found kneeling in front of the Clark Corporation building. Sincere, please help me, won't you? That animal, Julian, he used my name and the company's to take out over $1 billion in loans, lying that it was his uncle's inheritance. The moment he got the money, he fled the country. Now everyone is after me for the money. I'm at my wit's end. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so stubborn, so obsessed with my pride. I truly regret not cherishing you, Victoria cried and wailed. I wasn't surprised. The only thing that would have surprised me was if Julian actually had any real ability. Mr. Clark, what are your instructions? Miss Hansen asked for my opinion. I just waved my hand dismissively. She has nothing to do with me. I have no reason to care whether she lives or dies. Victoria was eventually driven away. The next time I heard news of her, she had died on a dirty mattress under an overpass. In her hand, she clutched a letter. It was a love letter I had once written to her. On the back, she had scrawled, "I'm sorry," over and over again. I had the love letter and her body sent to be cremated together. Her silent regret, I felt it, but it was all too late. 6 months later, my people found Julian abroad, but he was living a life worse than death. After fleeing the country, he had been scammed out of all the money by his old cronies and eventually trafficked into a brothel. In half a year, he had contracted more than a dozen diseases, yet he was still forced to service clients every day. Learning of his miserable fate, I could only think that what goes around comes around. He was the one who drove Victoria to her death, but in the end, he would atone for his sins against her. I hope that in their next lives, they can learn to be decent human beings. The End L58 Knock R7W